And then they got you, and you're paying for the data in and out, and then cross zone.
Exactly. So I'd rather have the
Okay.
All right, we're gonna just
Start with the beep button.
I'll beep myself.
we go ahead and get started.
Okay. Hi, my name's Andy Clemenko. This is Zack, Brady. We're a couple of field engineers for Rancher Government Solutions. Thank you for joining. We're going to talk about infrastructure today. One of the things as we go ahead and talk through our little slide presentation is really kind of think about, how we're helping the U.S. government run Kubernetes. So another tagline we have is we're going to meet you where your mission is. So whether it's in this cloud, that cloud, my cloud, your cloud, tactical edge, doesn't matter. Okay, let's talk about who we are. So fun fact, we're both actual firefighters in EMT. This is me from training a while ago, former DoD contractor. So if you guys know anything about, we're on closed loop, right? Anything about Container Yard, I built that 8 years ago. That was my idea. That was before it was even a thing. That was all me. I left, went to Docker for a couple years. They sold to the Russians. I had to find a new job. Luckily found one pretty quickly. Did StackRox, which is Kubernetes security. So really kind of delved down into the kind of CVEs and chain of custody and things like that, and also process monitoring, behavior analysis. Bought by Red Hat. I then left again and went to Rancher Government Solutions and really kind of doubled back down on the infrastructure side of things. That's me in a nutshell.
Everyone, my name is Zack Brady. As Andy said, I'm a field engineer here at RGS. Came here about 6 months ago because of the technology and found it's a great place to work as well. Started off in this community as a Navy, with detail here mainly for the intelligence side of it. And before that, I had my own business. It was a digital-based firm, did a bunch, not so much in Kubernetes, but as I went through the military, went through MPO and the contractors around here. Mantech, Booz, small contractor here, small contractor there. But really enjoyed my time here. Look forward to talking to you all today.
Okay, why Rancher? Let's level set a little bit. First off, are you guys familiar with Rancher? What we do? Is that a yes, no? I got 2 yeses and I got a half no, maybe a no? Okay. Kubernetes. Let's just, by the way, if any of these slides are boring, this is your opportunity to tell us what to do, what not to do. So this is completely interactive. If you don't interrupt me, I'm going to get mad and you don't get swag. That's the deal. So you have to interrupt me. You have to raise your hand. Say, hey, Shlomo, whatever. Right? Okay, so Rancher Government. Really, Rancher Government Solutions was invented, started, designed around really trying to bring Kubernetes and the Rancher products to the customer. Not just this side of the river, all rivers, all sides of the river. Okay, so really what it's about enterprise support. That's the first major pillar. Yeah, we're still calling these pillars. But 70% of our staff is fully cleared. Zack and I may or may not still be cool and can come in and help. We've been there, we've done that. We didn't get the t-shirt. But the idea is having support staff that understand the mission, understand air gaps, understand the problems you see on a day-to-day, week-to-week kind of basis is super helpful, right? The second major pillar is around professional services. So really from a support standpoint of view, that's tier 1, tier 2 ad hoc. It's paid with our paid product. Professional services is you want someone here for 6 months, you want someone on site for 3 months to fix a problem or build a solution. That's something we can definitely do. And then the third one we're calling the Mission Accelerator, but really it's about TAM, a technical account manager. So again, it's providing you with the right amount of support you need just for what you need when you need it. From product to infrastructure to development to on up. Okay.
Part of Mission Accelerator as well is everything we do here at Rancher is focused on governance first, security first mindset. So whether that's 5-2 compliance,
yep.
the only published dish of steak for Kubernetes, and all of that, we take that to heart. As Andy said, we air gap everything. We've been there. We've been inside the building doing this. Yeah. And we take that out to our development to have those features for you. So when that ATO officer comes to you and you want your ATO, we help you with that.
Yeah. And really kind of pulling that thread, right? Zack mentioned FIPS and SE Linux. RKE2, which is our Linux distribution, our Kubernetes distribution, is the only stigged Kubernetes distribution right now. Our management layer, Rancher, brain fart here, It's the company name and the multi-layer management layer, the product layer. That too also has a STIG. That is the only multi-cluster manager as well that's STIGged specifically. So when like Zack talked about, when you're talking to an IAVA, an ATO, or something like that, it's very easy to check the box and be like, we applied the STIGs for these products and move on. Talking about lowering the barrier to entry, whether you're using ECS, EKS, this really kind of lowers it because they don't have STIGs yet. The other thing is, Zack mentioned FIPS 140-2. We are actively working on getting all our products in the stack 140-3 and STIGged. So again, really trying to lower the barrier to entry for everybody. Any questions? Okay, cool. Does this look familiar to anybody? Do you guys support open source software? That whole like, hey, I ran into an issue. Let's Google it, right? And you're like, oh, you always go to Stack Overflow. Actually, we need to add a new one. Instead of Phone a Friend, it should be ChatGPT, right? That's the new one these days. Yeah, exactly. Google again, panic, and then you got your dumpster fire. Really, one of the things that we're kind of proud about is we're calling, at least on the IC team, the white glove. And it's the idea that we're going to kind of short circuit this, with paid support, with our help, with the TAM. We'll get you out of the, we'll get you out of the dumpster fire very quickly and get you back up and running.
Avoid the dumpster.
Very much so. In fact, here's a fun story. 2 weeks ago, the FE team, that would be the team Zack and I are on, we found a bug in RKE2. That was what, 4 o'clock on a Tuesday night or Thursday night? No, Tuesday night. It was like 4 o'clock on a Tuesday night. We had a workaround internally. We obviously opened the appropriate tickets upstream. We had customers emailing us Wednesday morning at 8 a.m. We already had the workaround to give them. It's that kind of support and response time that we're proud of, right? To be able to give our customers that level of support. Okay, did you guys have a good lunch?
Cookies.
There's cookies in the back, but did you have a good lunch? Okay, so the reason why I bring this up is I call our stack the 11-layer burrito. Because the nice thing is you can pick steak or chicken. And really, let's kind of start from the bottom. So we've got some infrastructure. Are you infrastructure or development? Infrastructure, cool. We're cooler anyway. I just want to forget the devs, right? But if we look at it from like a bottom-up standpoint of view, right? We talked a little bit earlier pre-video about any cloud, any hardware, Amazon, Azure, whatever. The nice thing is we can use any hardware, Dell, HP, MacBooks, whatever, it doesn't matter. We have a hyperconverged product which does VMs. It actually combines Kubernetes and VMs into the same control plane. So that way you can run VMs and containers right on the same host operating system. And if we've got time and you guys are curious, I can fire up. I've got Harvester running on one of the nodes in my cluster there. Thanks, Vanna. But the cool part about it is, if you want to run, we've got a customer over there that's running on VMware. Cool, we don't care. We have an opinion, but we're not locked into it. And that's really where that burrito analogy comes in, because you can pick steak, you can pick chicken, guac, cheese, whatever. When it comes to operating systems, our parent company is SUSE. We are a wholly owned subsidiary. We're FOCI mitigated, FCL, all the good stuff. So we can talk, kind of nice. We don't care which operating system. They've got one. I like Rocky. Rocky's free. RPM-based, SE Linux, all the things that we're used to from an infrastructure standpoint of view. You can just turn on and use, and it's open source, and there's no like Red Hat trying to come over the top and try and sell you on something. You can use any operating system, which is nice. Next, we're going to go to the container engine. We were talking a little earlier about Docker. Really, Containerd is the answer. It comes with our 2 Kubernetes distributions. Why change it? It's there, right? But if you ever wanted to go and have a Docker, have a container engine on your own, go Docker. I'm a firm believer that the pendulum's swinging back on complexity right now. Simpler is going to be better. Long-term, stable, full stop. Okay?
Part of that as well, we want to abstract everything away. You can easily change out the container engine to Docker, but you don't have an interface.
Don't do
with
it.
So why do you care? So.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about Kubernetes. We have 2. We have 2 distributions. One's called RKE2. Fully STIGged, FIPS, SE Linux, all the things. Then we have one called K3S. Have you guys heard of it? Okay, cool. So it's a stripped down, it's 60 meg binary, it can run on ARM, it can run on x86. Here's a fun fact, this is on the quiz later. K3S is at the heart of RKE2. So they use a lot of the advantages that have been put in there. By the way, I think there was a car accident over there, and I'm like drawn to it like a moth to flame. Yeah, it's pretty funny. The cool part about it is, as we start talking about tactical edge, it's up there. It's just on the side of the road. But as we start talking about tactical edge, really this idea of being able to pick the software that fits your compute environment. Do you guys mostly do like enterprise, big iron, or more edge? Where are you on that scale? Both? Both? By the way, this will require audience participation, right? We talked about this. You can eat, man. Just when I ask, just go, and and yeah. Okay. Just don't. Actually, if you choke, it's fine. 2 EMTs, you're good to go. I have a small aid kit with me at all times. Cool. What are you guys doing Kubernetes today?
I run our KE2, our K3s at home.
Okay.
And we're running our KE2 at the office.
Perfect. You have any problems with it?
Not with our KE. It's more the infrastructure that we're struggling with at the moment.
The hardware underneath?
Yeah, AWS.
Aha. We were so.
At the moment, infrastructure is good.
You got it. Yeah, that IAC is the hotness right now. I'm throwing sprinkle, salt base, some GitOps, and you're good to go.
Well, the customer wants a one-click install for the whole.
Have I got a? Oh shit! Hold on. Have I got a demo for you? And by the way, I forgot to do this. Thanks, Zack. Why can't I get it? Okay. I forgot to spin up my cluster for you guys. Let me learn to spell. Okay. It's now building in DigitalOcean. Right? Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm literally in the first week of a new gig.
Cool. Congratulations.
They plan to have clusters rotate.
Yes, blue-green. I love that.
They won't last, a given cluster won't live more than 2 weeks.
I love, so I call that reverse uptime, yeah. That is a very good strategy for 2 major reasons. One, you completely eliminate drift because you're always building with infrastructure as code. You're always rebuilding it. I'm sorry, junior admin. Learn what he's talking about because your job is your days are numbered. But you guys remember the old pets versus cattle conversation? That's the point. These shouldn't be pets. You shouldn't care and feed. You shouldn't take care of it and worry about it. Throw it out and buy a new one or build a new one, right? Anybody have Liberty Mutual insurance?
Do we know what it is?
There's never been any little commercials ever. I worked with them years ago when I worked at Docker. They do blue-green on all their production systems clusters in AWS, EC2. And they wipe the cluster out and they build a new cluster. Then they just repoint the load balancer. Actually, they do, active, and then load balance everything over. And they do a little canary testing to make sure. So it's a little more methodic and slower, but that's what they do. They never fix a cluster. That's what you're talking about, and that is great. Prevents drift, and here's the key. If they are pinning, so the devs, I'm gonna cringe, trigger alert, right? Trigger warning. Do not pin to a version, ever. Use latest, because, hold on, hear me out. In 2 weeks' time, when you build, you're building with the latest. Obviously, you've got to go through QA. I'm not saying YOLO it and go nuts, but go through QA. But now you've upgraded and built new, so you've prevented drift and upgraded all in one shot. And if there's a problem with it, how easy is it to revert? Point DNS, right? Set your TTL and DNS to like 60 seconds. It's a little manic unless you got good DNS servers. It's not a big deal. But set it to 100. Set it to 120. I think 150 is what I got mine, which is 2.5 minutes, I think. So boop, DNS can go back. If you've got an ELB as some sort of better load balancer, do 20% of your traffic on the new cluster. Let it soak. Are we seeing errors? Is it working? And then have synthetic transactions tests. So if it's like log into the web GUI, do this. What is it? Selenium Grid can do that. There's a few other applications that can do that. But that way you can test end to end and know that it's what you expect and how you expect it, and then move forward. Did that kind of help solidify? I'm a big fan of blue-green. That takes kind of a cultural shift with infrastructure as code and GitOps, and we have a whole thing. We'll show you in a little bit. When this is done, we're going to take a break, a little quick set of slides. We're going to take a break. We're going to actually start going through this, and I'm going to build on top of the cluster I just built and kind of walk you through it. but we're going to take notes, and the notes we're going to throw up into a gist, and you guys are going to have access to it. We could actually potentially append it to the show notes for the live stream. So that way it's all in one spot, it's yours, it's, you guys can glean all the beautiful information from it. Good? By the way, you do have, you get to pick from your swag because you asked a question. Come on, guys. It's all on you. Okay. Longhorn. So now you got Kubernetes up and running. We have a storage layer called Longhorn. One of the things we're really kind of keen on is this idea of storage tiering. In other words, you're going to have multiple different types of storage. No one storage will rule them all. So if you want to do EBS, cool. You want to offload your databases to RDS, cool. Longhorn actually uses the aggregate on all the nodes. There you go, if you're like peering over. But the nice thing about it is it uses the storage you already paid for. So if you're in an EC2 environment or VMware or whatever, bare metal, it just uses varlib Longhorn that's on those nodes already. So you don't have to buy additional storage. It's free. You're already paying for it. You've already got it. You can now use it. So in the case of EC2, you're not accruing additional cost, and you now get a consistent storage layer. One of the cool, go ahead.
I was going to say, part of that as well is the use case. Every storage tier has a different use case. Whether it's cost is always a factor, but if you're using a database, your IOPS, yeah, you might need a little bit faster. That's where you can go with EBS, or you can go with a NetApp, or some additional layer that's going to give you higher IOPS.
Yep. The other fun fact about Longhorn, encryption at rest. We know our friends over there like that. So that's a good one. And the cool thing about the encryption at rest is you can say the entire cluster has the same key, or you can key per namespace, which is nice. So that way, if you're going multi-tenant, each tenant can have their own key and have just a little bit more isolation between each other tenant. That's a good thing, especially, you guys are all across the way, I'd assume. Well, you said you cover commercial a little bit.
Yeah, I'm out of here at our office, so all of our...
No, but are you also talking over the way?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I am.
Okay. Well, because we like doing this, more intimate. So if you guys are not over the way, then we'll stop talking about over the way. But if you guys are, yes, no, maybe so. Okay, cool.
Yes.
Yes, cool. I like that. Okay, let's talk about networking. Any questions on storage? You guys don't want swag, do you? Okay, that's fine. Okay, networking. So here's the basic thing. We come with Canal. Canal is a combination of flannel and calico. Don't worry about all those words. Don't worry about those products. Just use the default networking that's built in. It's the best of like layer 3 and layer 4 and layer 7.
Layer 4, layer 7.
There you go. It's the best of both worlds. It is what it is. If you want to install Istio, are you guys using Service Mesh? Don't. I'm sorry. This is being recorded. There's a couple good uses for it. If you aren't hitting those good uses, don't use it. It is a layer of complexity. Think crawl, walk, run. That is an additional layer of complexity you may not need or want right now. It's really good at cert injection from a sidecar, so if you're doing mutual TLS. And by the way, if I go rambling on all these acronyms, stop me. Please stop me if you don't know. Right? Come on, Junior.
I don't want to weigh the...
No. This is it. Zach and I know what we're talking about. This is for you. So seriously, if there's an acronym, plus you get swag. I'm just saying, it's the best of both worlds. But yeah, like Istio is good for like mutual TLS, where it automatically goes and gets a cert to talk to its service, and so you can kind of manage certs that way.
How does it deal with, where does it get those certs from?
Wherever you want to do it. So whether you're implementing a KMS solution with Vault, HashiCorp Vault, or if you've got an on-site HSM, you could potentially have it plug into that. So HSM is a hardware security module. KMS is key management system. They're kind of the same thing. One is physical hardware, one is software. I think software escrow.
If you receive your certs from a certain customer, you're able to also use those as well.
Well, they actually use info blocks for an HSM on the back end. So in theory, you can plug it into an API.
Do you need a CA?
No. The certificate authority? Well, that is the CA. So it can be, well, okay. No.
You don't need a CA, or no, you can't?
You need a CA, but it doesn't necessarily need to be root signed. Okay, for those uninitiated, what we're talking about is a certificate chain. So in other words, if I sign a key, I say, I'm the authority, and what was your name?
David.
David, okay, David, I allow you, I'm going to give you a certificate that you can now sign keys, but I'm saying David is my intermediate. And then what's your name? Tim. So you sign a key for Tim. Tim, you want to give it to Zack and be like, hi, I'm Tim. Zack's going to go, hold on, who signed it? Zack's going to ask David, did you sign it? David's going to go, yes, basically. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but. And then because Zack, another way to kind of validate that is, Zack's already installed the certificate I signed. I'm the root, right? So then he can go look at your cert and go, yep, it's validated by Andy, it's validated by David, we're good to go, right? That's the way you validate and verify these certs. So there's a weird theory that I have about, and we call this kind of a cert domain. Think of it like a .com. I'm, Andy.com, and he's david.andy.com, and you're tim.david.andy.com. You see this kind of like domain. So there's this idea that you don't necessarily need that, where you could have one that's called self-signed. In other words, we're disconnected from the internet. I'm not a root. You go, I'm Tim at tim.com. You self-sign it. As long as Zack goes, I trust you, then the certificate will just work. But what's kind of cool about it is if you're on an isolated system, air-gapped on air-gapped on air-gapped, if somebody goes to your service and you say, I'm tim.tim.com, my browser's going to go, who the F are you? Right? It's going to throw up an error. That's actually a good thing because it's just enough of a barrier to say, are you sure you really want to go here? Now, obviously, the adversary will just do it anyway, but it's more about just a little bit of back pressure, just a little bit of pushback in terms of having an insider threat or an accidental exposure. Does that kind of jive? It's nuanced.
Well, the problem we have is we need to do mutual TLS outside of.
Then you need a root.
Yeah, and that's what we're not going to get.
Well, that sounds like an opportunity to chat Zack and I up later, because the end of the story is you need customer-specific signed root. Where that domain exists, could be the entire customer. It could be a subset of the customer. I'm thinking more, some of the enclaves have their own certs.
We're not.
Well, you see where I'm going. Like it's the domain, and I think you could narrow. I like narrowing it down because that's less surface area in general. Back to the example with Tim, David, myself, Zack, and Zack's greatest cert in the world. But figure out who needs to talk and make sure you're in the domain that they all have access. It's really, you're probably going to be hanging off the root. That's just to understand. Hit us up later. We can kind of, is there a whiteboard here? Of course not. We can whiteboard it.
We can drag one in.
Yeah, we can always use like the whiteboard function on a computer or something. I almost brought my tablet and pencil just for that exact like Excalidraw. That would work. Okay. We went real deep on mutual TLS, but the idea with like Istio, and this is kind of one of the big things with Rancher, so I'm kind of dovetailing back to this, is that we have an application catalog. We really want to make sure that you can get your applications installed very easily. Istio is one of those applications. I think they were talking about single-click deployment. Somebody was talking about single-click deployment. This is single-click deployment. It's 4-click. I'm sorry, I lied. It's 4-click deployment of an application. The nice thing is that you can back-end your own repo with your own application. So as you're building, here you go, shout out to your devs. If you're building stuff, as long as you're deploying with Helm or Kubernetes YAML, you can define it, publish it, put it in a catalog, such that when we get to the cluster management, somebody can just go clickety-click, and now they've deployed your great app. Fun fact, do you know the top 2 web apps across the street? This is a fun question. What are the top 2 web apps across the street?
Top 2 number visited.
Number of visitors per day. Oh, come on, no guesses? You're the worst. Yes, actually. The menu.
Okay.
You know what number 2 is? Daily Puzz. Now, it might have changed. This was from a couple years ago. But the idea of like, wait, not work stuff?
Is it down?
That's probably number 3 right now. Well, and then, what was it? Image Store was up there for a while, and they shut it down. Yeah. Okay.
To sum up networking, evaluate Istio fully before you implement it. At scale, it's complex.
Crawl, walk, run.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, let's get on to cluster management. So that we talked about the app catalog function. Really, cluster management, we're going to spend a little time on this and when we're done with the slideshow portion of the event. But basically, that's how you manage all the cluster life cycles, application life cycles. It really can be the hub for all of your downstream clusters. So if you're managing multiple clusters, you're managing one. I've got one running, like I said, running in my case. I've got one running in the cloud right now. That can really be that spoken hub and manage all those different life cycles. What's really nice, though, is it's a single point of entry, single RBAC. So it's very easy to gate off developers and yet give them all the access they want to the downstream clusters. Developers in the room. Who SSH is still into nodes? Okay. Don't do it. You don't need to do it anymore. That's a nice thing. You can get access to your applications through the web GUI, multiple different paths, and we'll dig in through some of them on how to get to your apps from one single entry point without having to SSH anymore. So from a security standpoint of view, having worn that hat many times, you don't have to share root access or SSH access to the nodes anymore. Again, back to the blue-green clusters, you start treating the nodes like cattle. Oh, it died. Cool, let's get 4 more. Right? Again, we'll dig into that.
Cool thing with the Rancher multi-cluster manager as well. It fully integrates into these certain classified cloud regions. So it's very easy to get it implemented on the low side and also back at work.
Also, RBAC, like OIDC, Keycloak, all the things. So authentication, authorization. We don't have a plugin for that authorization piece, but you could potentially, because it's Keycloak now, right? You could potentially use it for the front-end OIDC, and that will provide the auth chain. No, we'll follow up later, off video. Off interwebs. I was joking earlier about GitOps as like Salt Bay. One of the cool things about the Rancher Manager, and this is more in like application management, is around a tool that's built in called Fleet. So do you guys use Argo or Flux? Fleet's built in, it'll do it. It's much simpler. So if that's, in terms of an MVP, if that's enough to do what you need to do, if you want to do Argo with Customize and Flux, do it. Like all these tools, here's a good thing. All these tools are interchangeable. You want to use one piece, you don't want to use our storage, you're not going to hurt my feelings. You want to use a different operating system, still not hurting my feelings. The idea is you get to choose, which is kind of nice. As part of that Rancher distribution, we also have a management and logging layer. Grafana, Prometheus, Fluentd. It's all the standard stuff. Again, deploy it if you like, don't deploy it if you don't like. It's on you. But that is an app catalog thing. And then last but definitely not least is NuVector, our security layer. Again, all these tools interchangeable. So being a former StackRox guy, if you want to use, I don't even know what else is out there, Twistlock, Aqua Prisma, there's a handful of them that's still out there. But I think across the way, I think it's just Twistlock, us, and StackRox. I think there's only 3. Any questions on the burrito?
I have a question.
Thank you, Tim. Fine, you get swag.
Is there a common point to when the effort to use the Kubernetes stack is better than using Docker? Like we
Is this a spiritual question or is this a technical one?
like we use we have a number of Docker instances that we manage on top of KVM.
Okay.
But I'm trying to figure out.
Here's an easy way. Yep. Here's the easy way. I'll give you a formula. If the pain to learn Kubernetes and convert everything over to it is less than the management struggle you have with all those independent VMs, then go Kubernetes. Does that make sense? Kubernetes is a scheduler. That's it. You say, just like Docker, you say, I need 3 of these. Kubernetes go, great. How am I going to distribute 3? Okay, let's figure it out. And it looks at its nodes and says, you do this, right? And it's just a scheduler and a distributor. Now, it adds in networking concepts. It adds in ingress. It adds in storage concepts to kind of match that up. It's complex. I'm not going to lie. But when you're at a large enough scale that managing that one big VM or that one big bare metal, you've got now 2 or 3, you want to do blue-green, you want to have a little more control, or you're shipping your application to an edge, that's where it makes sense. The older I get, the more I'm in this industry, the more I realize it's not the answer, it's an answer, right? Anybody here, like plumbers or electricians with a big tool? You want as many tools in your pouch as possible, right? You don't see them walking around with one screwdriver and be like, I got it, and they flip it over and start using it as a hammer. It's that kind of point. Kubernetes is a tool, Docker is a tool. Figure out what the end goal should be, whether it's blue, green, large scale, multi-cluster. Like, case in point, you know how Chick-fil-A, their back office uses 3 NUCs? Do you guys know about this? So they use
Kubernetes on the edge at each store.
They use K3S. They didn't buy support, the bastards. But they use K3S on their 3 NUCs in every store. 3 NUCs in every store. To them, they've got high availability with 3 nodes. If a node dies, corporate just sends them a node, and the manager goes, oh, plugs it in. Cool, right? And we're seeing similar type approaches for high availability and redundancy to the tactical edge. Right? Think military as well, type of Humvee or wherever, backpacks or whatever. That makes sense. Another good thing for Kubernetes over Docker, well, it's more, I should say Kubernetes and Docker versus non, is that portability and that consistency, right? So one of the big trends right now is you get to know about data locality, compute where the data is. So an idea is you find some piece of data, compute it, put a GPU on it, do AIML, whatever it is, whatever you need to do, wherever you get the data as soon as possible, and then send back the good stuff, the wheat, have you will. That's becoming a big trend right now. So, okay, how do you run your big analytic, your big web app locally to compute that data? And that's where the velocity, that's where the portability of a container really kind of comes in. Let me flip it around. What problems are you having with your KVM-based VMs right now?
Well, it's more conceptually of like we don't have like HA or anything like that, so.
Are you the admin? Are you on PagerDuty?
I am one of them.
Has it gone down on you?
There has been issues in the past.
Would you like self-healing?
I would.
Kubernetes. but that's the thing is like I've been doing this for quite a number of years and I like the idea of a lot of little. The idea is instead of having one big 5U server when and I've done this when the IT guy in the back who's putting in a new network dongle in trips over the power cord and your data center or that rack goes dark, right? Spread it out. A lot of little servers, whether they're VMs. Here's the cool part. You could have one of those big 5Us running bare metal. You could have another one running VMs. Put them in 2 separate racks. Have 2 separate power cords, 2 separate switches, 2 separate uplinks. Now you've got complete redundancy. I think the big thing is understanding what they call the failure domain. We talked about cert domains a little bit, but it's that same kind of idea. How much failure are you engineering for? As a guy who used to go on PagerDuty, I'm going to engineer for all the failures. I don't want that thing ever going off, right? So the nice thing about Kubernetes is you can spread it out, a lot of little servers. It'll do the magic behind. Kubernetes will go, oh, Tim's app went down. Hey, could you spin it up, please? And now the app comes back on, potentially within milliseconds. So you can definitely engineer a lot of that out.
And it's all relative as well. It's the amount of risk you're willing to take for your mission, right? If you're willing, if a bare metal node dies and you're acceptable with that risk, you can develop for that. If say NFS or a NetApp goes down, you're willing to support that, you can all engineer this stack for your level of risk.
Go ahead.
I have another question based on this too.
Well, wait, did we answer the first one?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know about that one. Okay, go ahead. What's the second one?
To see if anyone's done this concept yet, right? Because I don't know what stage like the harvester pieces or things like that are at either. But if you're using Kubernetes, like on the server side, have you seen anyone also using Kubernetes on the workstation side?
Yes.
To be able to
Yep.
develop
Okay, wait, go ahead.
Well,
No, don't use Minikube. Okay. The term is called Docker and Docker, or Kubernetes and Docker, or Minikube. Kind, okay, which is Kubernetes and Docker. I don't like them because as a developer, I don't like those tools. I'll get to the perfect answer, well, in my opinion, right? So bear with me. I don't like those because there's several layers into themselves, that when you start thinking about how do I deploy my app in production Kubernetes, kind is very different because of the network interfaces and storage.
If you have to deal with that, sure.
Yes.
You just want to
But hold on.
run something.
K3s, 60 meg binary, run it on your desktop. Rancher desktop, Podman desktop, Docker desktop. There's a new one out that I've started using called OrbStack. You can very easily deploy Hell yeah. But that's nerdctl is the binary to talk to containerd. I would rather run a single node cluster as like a K3s binary versus running Docker and then running some other application stack, kind or Minikube within that. I think Minikube, I haven't really looked at it in a while, but it did similar. But the idea is I would rather go with K3s because then if I'm doing on a single node, whether it's ARM, a Raspberry Pi, a VM running on my laptop, a VM running in the cloud, it's the same thing. It is a fully featured Kubernetes full API that then I can if I want, do a storage layer, add a GUI, run metrics and monitoring, and it's going to act and perform just like it would in production.
A lot of the value there is your developers and infrastructure folks as well have the same interface, they do the same thing on their workstation and in their prod clusters or in their physical clusters.
Don't spike me.
So that's another great value of Kubernetes is you don't have like individual nuances with each of my nodes because I'm running Docker here, Docker there. You create applications, you create infrastructure for Kubernetes, and you don't care about anything below Kubernetes. If it deploys in Kubernetes, it deploys.
Yeah.
Have you seen people using the harvester piece on workstations for like virtual machine virtualization for the developers to use with the Kubernetes piece?
I would say more rancher desktop. So that's not listed on here, but Harvester's more
excuse
server
me.
enterprise.
Yes, it is listed on
Oh.
here.
There it is.
Okay, so that's getting really nuanced. Harvester in terms of hyperconverged is great. You could run a Windows VM and RDP into it, absolutely. I think really, look at this from a different angle. What is your compute, like how much compute do you have? And then what makes sense in terms of slicing and dicing that up for a workspace environment, a workstation environment, and like if you've got a laptop, develop there. If you've got a thin client, then someone else is mandating what you do. Figure that out, right? Because you have, again, the analogy of using the screwdriver as a hammer. Make sure you're using the right tool for the right job. I think that's where I would say K3s is great on a single Linux VM, on a workstation. There's a handful of Rancher desktop, Docker desktop, Podman desktop on a Windows notebook or Mac notebook. There's OrbStack. There's a handful of them out there. I'd go that route. I'd go as simple as possible because it's going to be more, performant long term.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out because we on our servers and workstations we run Docker and we run Kvium for like virtual containers. So I was trying to see if there's a way to replace
Yes.
that across servers and workstations or something else.
When we get into the play side, I'll show you Harvester running. I'll fire this up. I would look at Harvester. By the way, everything here is open source. So everything we've been talking about, you can absolutely download and use today, if you're into that sort of thing. Yeah.
I don't know if this relates at all to what you're describing, but my prior gig, all developers work with VMs, like everything in Docker Compose, and then sneaking at it into an enclave that was running OpenShift.
Okay.
I have to hand bangle the Docker Compose files into a Kubernetes
Yeah.
file.
How much of a pain in the tuchus was that?
It's a jug file every time.
Okay, we're being recorded, so you may want to.
He
did it. His name's Tom. No, I'm just kidding. This is really when we talk about corporate inertia, right? So you guys running Docker and KVM, you're running Docker Compose on class or wherever. Practice the way you play. In other words, if you know you're producing for Kubernetes, go with K3s. Go with a desktop solution that's a single click, whether it's Kind, Minikube, I don't care. Just start with that. You know, and that way you've got the deployment YAML or the Helm, and you cross the domain and it will just work. Right? Having to translate from one to the other, you know, is a giant pain, and there's no consistent way to do it.
A lot of errors there as well. That
Yeah.
you want to.
Customer every time.
I'm going to throw another one out there. There is a new tool on the market called Acorn. Have you guys heard about Acorn? Nobody's acorn.io. It is by the developers that first built Rancher, by that group. And their idea, so again, let's talk about our burrito. Imagine a burrito. Their idea was you've got guacamole on the side on top. So when you think about this, right, it's just abstraction layers up. What Acorn sits on top of Kubernetes. So when you talk about your Docker Compose is, say, 50 lines. The Kubernetes YAML equivalent is 80 lines. The Acorn is 6, right? The other cool thing about that is if Kubernetes dies tomorrow, they can retool Acorn to point to whatever the next deployment mechanism, the next scheduler is. Again, just adding a layer of abstraction, another layer of abstraction. Take a look at it. It's pretty cool. Think of it as like a Helm replacement, where Helm is the deployment mechanism or descriptive language, right? Because Helm just says, I want my thing to be deployed with this variable, this network, this storage, this. So you're able to kind of simplify and replace that. Does that help? Yeah, we like Acorn a lot. It's still very early days. It's open source, so cool. Have at it. Okay. NewVector. A couple things I want to highlight real quick on the security layer is, NewVector has that continuous observability for CVEs. So one of the things, like when you go production, everyone's going to be like, well, how many CVEs is it? Do we have Log4j? Is it Heartbleed knows whatever? I know. I love all the new terms. NewVector is a great tool to give you that observability. Another thing that's in addition to that, which is really cool, is its behavioral analysis. So NewVector as a product has the ability to look and understand what's going on, what's its steady state, its known good state of processes and network. And then you can put it into what, literally it's like kill mode, where anything that's anomalous gets killed or dropped.
Protect mode.
I like kill mode, but okay, yes, it's called protect mode. But here's the cool thing. Log4j came out. They immediately had a rule for NewVector for Log4j. Your container could still have that vulnerability, and whenever it saw the HTTP packet that would exploit Log4j, it would drop the packet. Your container would never see it. And it's proactive. Now this was a rule, they're like, okay, this is a known thing, but when you put it into protect, aka kill mode, any anomalous packet that comes in, any header, any weird data, any new connection from a different pod, drops. So it's really proactive, where a lot of the tools that I've used to sell, are reactive. You have to tell it what to look for. This just says, do a British quote, piss off, right?
The cool thing as well with NewVector, it's 3 main components that I see you might have individual tools for. It can do build time, runtime, and at your registry. So you don't need a registry tool, you don't need a build time tool, you don't need a runtime tool. It can do it all.
Okay. You guys tired of products? Here, we do a lot of open source stuff. It's Kubernetes. So when talking about Docker Swarm or Docker on the desktop, Kubernetes is Kubernetes. So any application that supports Kubernetes will run on ours, and vice versa, right? Our storage will work on OpenShift. They won't like it, but it'll work, right? So, and that's one of the nice things about Kubernetes is if it's kube, it's kube, but it's portable, it'll work for the most part.
Point here as well on this Rancher side, the left side here, that's where we actually take an SLA on. So you see we have, 5 products there. Those are our own products. The rest are open source, and we take an SLA with our support on those products.
So paid support, best effort. Easy way to think of it.
And this list is also not exhaustive. This is what marketing chose to put on our PowerPoint. We have a lot more certified integrations.
Just look at the CNCFI chart. Okay. Here's how we're going to take it a step further. So RGS as a company, we have what's called Carbide. This takes our open source Kubernetes a step further, okay? That's marketing. Really, it's three things, okay? Let's start with our secure supply chain. So have you guys heard about Executive Order 14028? Really, you haven't? It's only been out like 9 months.
Have you heard about supply chain security, especially with open source software?
Okay, so
That's
this
the executive order for that.
Yeah, this executive order basically says all software in the federal government has to have a software bill of materials, SBOM for short. Okay. They also say there's a new bill that just came out. I forget the bill number, but it also says that you have to have support for all software. It's this idea that like they got hit too many times by some of the open source stuff, shift left, log4j, things like that. That they're like, whoa, we need to know what's going on, especially our friends over here.
And also, CISA as well has put out
Yep.
many mandates and guidelines and policies. That's cybersecurity agency.
Yep.
So
here's kind of the cool thing. RGS, Rancher Government Solutions, has taken all the upstream Rancher bits. We've vulnerability scanned it. We've SBOM'd it. They're also known as attestations. And we've cryptographically signed the image, and we have our own registry. So as a paying customer, you have access to pull the bits from us with all the attestations and signatures, cryptographically verified. So when you become a paid customer, you can check that, oh yeah, we're Executive Order 14028 compliant today.
and that's before you even bring it onto your network.
Yep.
So you can view the SBOMs, view the vulnerabilities without even bringing it into your network. And then once you verify, oh, looks good, looks safe, then I can bring it into my network and then also check the signature on it to make sure nothing happened in transit.
Yep. So that's the first component, the first piece. The second piece is we call Stigatron. I don't like the name because then if that's Stigatron, then this needs to be Supplyatron and that needs to be Docatron. But that died in committee. But Stigatron really is about Stig observability. So again, remember early on I said we've got the only Stigged Kubernetes and we have the only Stigged multi-cluster management layer. This Stigatron actually does the observance against it. And we can show it, we can run a scan. But what it does is it basically gives you either a graphical view or you can export it as CSV and JSON to evaluate your cluster against our STIGs. The next major release you'll be able to add in any STIG, any XCCF. So if you're looking at Java, you're looking at whatever, you can tell it, hey, go scan my cluster, give me the report. What's really cool about it is you can automate the output. So now you can start thinking about continuous ATO, where you say, look, we ran the report last week, I had a number of 4. We ran it again. Look, it's still 4. We're not doing worse. You laugh, but it's true. Have you guys worked with ISOs or ISIs, information security engineers? How many times do they copy and paste? Like that's their job. They get carpal tunnel copying and pasting, I swear to God. So this is a way you can automate it. And then my favorite was you export it from a tool like this and you check it into version control. So every week the security officer goes and checks version control. Look at the report, look at the report, look at the report. Oh, we're good. And it just boom, 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 automate it.
And a cool pairing with that is also most of NewVector is also exportable.
Yep.
So you can check in all of the NewVector CVEs or policies, everything like that. Export that, check that in version control as well.
Actually, you guys are playing with latte art. Latte art on a micro scale. Right. Because the whole point of latte art was observability. I worked with Nate on it a little bit. Nate Burton back in the day.
Have you guys ever done a NIST crosswalk where you're sitting there comparing controls?
Those are horrible.
Inside of Stigatron will show you as well. It actually gives you a clickable, viewable NIST
If you ever had to do it.
800-53 crosswalk.
Yep.
So it really is, the brain behind this was, the brain behind Carbide in general, was trying to take everything that we all deal with inside the building every single day and just make it easier.
That could save me from eating my gum.
If we can save that. Okay, and the third major piece is air gap documentation. I call this a quality of life improvement. But if you've ever had to the 3 feet apart, or I got to run outside for a second and get on your phone or whatever, all the docs are built in. Makes it easy. Carbide as a whole is for paid customers. It's built in, so it is a licensed piece of software. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
It's not a fork. It's not forked. It's a bolt-on capability. So you're not deviating from open source. We're adding on to that functionality that you already have.
Yep. Questions?
We'll get into it more.
If you want. And by the way, when we're done with this little slide deck, we can kind of navigate and go wherever you guys want to go with this. Attestations for SBOM. This took me a year to figure out. Do you want to know what an attestation is? Does anybody know what an attestation is? You guys want the inside baseball? I'm going to make you sec DevOps security engineers. You got to put this on your LinkedIn. I swear to God, you better put it on and tag me tonight. An attestation is just a file, a signed file. That's it. So in the case right here, we have an SBOM. That is an attestation of the software bill of materials inventory. It is a text file. Attestations for image. What do you think these would be?
Tarballs?
Close. Text files. In this case, the attestations are the Trivy CVE scans, the vulnerability report. Signature. That actually is the public key for whoever signed all this. And because of the tool we use, so we use a tool called cosign from ChainGuard. See cosign tree. You have the public key. You can validate the attestation, which is what? Come on, Tim. What's an attestation? Oh my God! I'm taking your swag away. It's a file. It's just a file. It doesn't, you know. But so here's the cool part. Once you realize that, it's like, oh, that's not so hard to understand, right? The signature signs the attestation. It signs the SBOM. Well, now you can validate all of these. You can output the JSON, use a tool like JQ, and be like, give me the data. And now you can look at it and inspect how many different versions of OpenSSL is in this, right? Just kind of jiving a little bit. OpenSSL. No. We'll get you there, David. I promise.
So if attestations are files, a container is, what's a container?
A tarball.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. You guys know that one, right? A container image is just a tarball. It's just a wrapper. Dude, this quiz is going to be hard for you guys later. If you're not, I'm just saying. Okay. And here's a picture of the air-gapped docs. We'll drain the list more. You know, if you guys aren't interested in the SBOMs, we don't have to go down that road. But again, having all these docs from SUSE mothership, like a single click, is really nice to have. Here's a picture of Stigatron. We'll go over that. This is, you guys familiar with, this is called Heimdall from MITRE. So MITRE makes this presentation layer that we've borrowed. It's open source. But the nice thing is we'll give you the output. And like Zach was saying, you can click through and look at the crosswalk if you need. So again, when your Izzy taps you on the shoulder, you love this. I love this. Like, your Izzy taps you on the shoulder and says you have a poem for an IAVA. You have to create the poem. You're like, oh, hold on. Exactly, shoot your head. But now you can show them this tool and be like, oh, here's the fix.
Export.
And as Zach pointed out, you can export it so they can go get it in CSV format, you know, Excel format, or JSON.
Think of CIS benchmark scanning. This is that, but for sticks.
It is better. Cool. Carbide deployment, I'm not going to bore you with that. By the way, we got a few ATOs. This is like the mic, I wouldn't say the mic drop, but there's, and this is out of date, there's quite a few.
Yeah, my slide has like 15 of them.
And growing. All the IC, all the DoD, all the cool kids. You want to be cool, right?
We were down in Virginia 3 weeks ago, a month ago, giving a workshop like this as well to that side of the river.
This is just kind of highlighting the fact that our software is 100% portable. Fully air-gapped, fully deployed today. Like I said earlier, we call it tactical edge. I didn't bring my 6-node cluster because 2 of the nodes died. I brought my little one because it fits in my backpack. It's easier to travel with, and that's another one. That's the old version that I have at home still. But again, it's about portability. It's about being able to take that software anywhere. Anywhere your mission goes. That's cheesy, I know, but it's true. Okay. You want to take a 5-minute break? Potentially mute, keep the stream going, and then bio break, whatever, and then we'll actually just start digging into some of the demo and playing. If that's
Question and answers.
Question and answers.
some of
Yeah,
the
again,
software.
you guys gotta ask questions more. Don't leave it all up on Tim. He's. What do you think? 5 minutes.
On AWS is your primary
So
deployment?
For those,
We have multi-cloud, because we have.
Okay.
We have hardware,
But cloud, not bare metal.
we have bare metal,
Okay.
and we're trying to make the HCI transition.
oh, okay. So
Terraform
the,
Ansible.
Yeah.
That was my recommendation. Terraform Ansible.
so the
And
question,
That's the key that we found out, I think I heard the other day, was that it's going to be a multi-tool solution, and that you're going to stand up the cluster with Terraform, and then or stand up all the infrastructure with Terraform, and then provision it with Ansible.
So
yeah,
Or
so
something like that.
so for since the audio just came back on, we're talking about tooling on how to deploy clusters. Case in point, I'm using a horribly written bash, but there are other tools out there, and I think the answer really is that multi-tool approach, right? We talked about toolboxes earlier,
Yeah.
or tool bags, me namely. But like having Terraform, because that's pretty ubiquitous. But if you think about it, Terraform's an abstraction to a hyperscaler SDK, CLI, right? So okay, cool. Ansible is great because it's SSHing into the individual node, and there's a lot of modules around it. That's great. You do have a lot of corporate inertia around that.
The opposite of the house is using Salt Stack, but
Don't trust them. That's stupid.
that's what they know and that's what they use. So we'd love to continue. We'd love to go either way. We don't really. Our team, my particular team, doesn't care.
The question I have, big picture, for you is, does the tool do everything you need today and tomorrow? You know what I mean? Like, is there, like, especially with Salt and Puppet and Chef to a certain extent, is there enough community input to keep the project moving forward for the next Kubernetes, for the next AI ML platform? Is it moving forward, or do you see it as a lot more stagnant? That's why I always fall back to Bash, is because A, I know it's inside, it's everywhere, you're never getting rid of it. B, I can write anything I want, so I can mend it and it'll always be ready and capable. With some of these Terraform modules, we got guys in our team that are like, oh, I'll just build a Terraform module for Harvester that does this. I'm like, are you going to maintain that? And they're like, well, no, this is just for an example. Like, somebody will come by and pick it up and like, oh my God, I need to rely on that. And so that's why I ask about tomorrow is the tooling you're using, is there that community? Do you think that tool is going to be around? Because we talked a little bit earlier about corporate inertia. Having to retool is bad, right? It takes too much time and energy.
we see a lot of customers stand up their first RK2 cluster and install Rancher Manager on that with, say, Terraform and Ansible or with Bash, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And then once that first one's built, you can do all your infrastructure as a code using the Rancher Manager to deploy out the subsequent infrastructure. Whether that's deploying on AWS, deploying on Harvester, deploying on VMware, whatever it may be. But that's kind of what we see. You use some infrastructure as code tool to deploy your first cluster, install Rancher Manager, and then the value of the Rancher Manager comes in with easily deploying on any infrastructure. So you don't have to worry about a special tool for Amazon or a special tool for bare metal. You could just use the Rancher Manager.
Go up the abstraction stack as fast as possible.
Never run yum update again. You said blowing away a cluster, right? Every 2 weeks you blow away a cluster. Never have to run yum update.
By the way,
again.
that is like level 401 school type. That's like PhD. That
It's doable. We have customers doing it.
It's, from what I understand, it's a new development, because they tried it at first a different way, and then they're like, oh, no, we need to do it different way.
85% of Zack and I's job is education, getting teams to understand not necessarily what the right path is, but what the right tool is to figure out where that path is. And so it dovetails nicely into the tooling question, right? It's just what works for you now, today and tomorrow, understanding that long-term goal of like GitOps and infrastructure as code, and I never have to worry about PagerDuty because it's self-healing. That's the goal. So how do we get you there, right? Okay. Are you cool with this agenda? Right, we talked about, we're going to talk about cluster lifecycle. I'm installing Longhorn and Rancher. I haven't installed NuVector yet. So NuVector, that's security. We've got our multi-cluster. I've already installed that. We can talk about GitOps. Does this make sense? Is there anything you want to see? There's a squinty eye there.
Yeah, I'm looking at your RK82.sh right now.
Whoa, look at you. Okay, that was the spoiler. The cluster I just built, I have a repo, RKE2, that I've got all, like my bash script in. That'll go and build a 3-node cluster in DigitalOcean. This This is not on the quiz, by the way. But it is, I've been told many times I should never promote it. It is not fit for human consumption. It is not production ready. It, in fact, will give you Ebola. Your mileage may vary, right? But I use it all the time. I run ephemeral clusters. In fact, since we've been here talking to you, I've had 3 clusters. We built one earlier down at the Notch 8. I shut it down. When we got here, I shut it down. I built the second one. It had sometimes the VMs are like, I don't want to work today.
Auto-scaling.
What about?
Yep.
That's something we're definitely looking at.
Okay. In terms of the, okay, so I'll add it to the list. Can I add it at the bottom?
Yep.
Auto scaling.
Are you guys building AMIs? Are you building launch templates?
Are you all EC2?
The idea is to go EKS.
Well, then you don't need to worry about auto scaling, right?
You need to have a driver for it somewhere.
Okay. I thought EKS auto scaled. Or do you set your min and max?
Well, if you want, what if you want more than CPU and memory?
Well, then you just swipe the credit card.
I think that's where you kind of outlive EKS. If you want to look for, if you want granular control of your control plane, managed Kubernetes is very hard.
Well, you've got things like, well, we're looking at EC2, ECS.
ECS.
Okay.
Okay.
So in theory,
Node groups and
Yep.
yeah, in theory, ECS and EC2, you just set up the auto scaling groups based and set your CPU threshold or your, whatever your threshold is.
well, we have drivers that are not CPU and memory. So, for example, we are using.
Are you pre-staging for events? Are you event driven?
No.
Okay.
Well, yes and no.
Maybe.
Well, it's not necessarily like, hey, it's a declared event. It's,
Got it.
hey, they brought the thing in and they need to offload all the data off of it.
Oh,
Yep.
so auto scaling ingest.
Yes.
Okay.
Because I'm data processing.
Oh, lucky you. MDRs?
A little bit.
Okay. I was on.
I'm on the knife.
I helped them containerize it 8 years ago.
That's exactly what we're doing now.
Yeah. You could probably, okay,
Kubernetes.
you could probably Google my name inside and find my code for that. Just saying. Google.
Do you want to add in Terraform link as well?
Yeah, we can do that. Which Terraform? Whose? Yours? We can add yours.
Yeah.
Okay. Insert Terraform. Okay.
.tf.
Yeah, Tim.
Months ago, I don't know, maybe like 6 months ago or maybe more, when I was looking, I think it was, came out of Tuesday, we had a project for immutable base.
Elemental. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah. Immutable infrastructure, immutable OSs? Oh, you know it off the top of your head?
Yeah.
Is it recommended to run on top of immutable or
That's a spiritual question. The reason why I bring it up is because I had CoreOS ATO'd 8 years ago over here. It was ATO'd for a hot second, and part of the paradigm was a 2-week uptime. I'd pull in the latest QCal, the OS image, and latte art would scan for freshness. That was the idea. Got it ATO'd, we were running it. It was front-ending container yard for a short period of time. And then, yeah. Put the link in the.
I put it in, but
okay.
I was while you were talking, I was going to highlight.
So the idea of the immutable
Yeah, it's with
OS has been
Terraform.
around for a long time, 10 plus years. It's never quite gained traction because of the cost of infrastructure to build and maintain it, right? SUSE now has a tool called Elemental that'll do what's called SLE Micro. It's along the same lines as CoreOS, Fedora Core. I thought Bottle Rocket was also a runtime and, no, maybe it was, maybe it was.
It's an AMI.
That's right, that's right. They're great. They're great. They're fabulous. But if you don't have all the basics of infrastructure as code and Terraform and all that figured out, don't worry about that. That is like your PhD last class before you graduate kind of thing, right? I would stick with the basics. I would stick with an operating system you can SSH into. I would stick with the tooling, whether it's Ansible or Salt or Bash. But stick with the tooling until you start understanding understanding the basics, understanding the automation, getting it down, orders of operation, and get to a point where you feel stable, and then start playing with adding on and adding on and adding on, right? What was your first car?
A Ford Escort.
Okay. Did you immediately lower it, put the wing on it, put the coffee can? Did you?
I never did that.
Oh, you should. It's fun. But the point is, like, you don't start off with the hot rod. You start off with the basic, and then you change the air filter, and you maybe put a tune on it, maybe change the rate. You work over time when you get more comfortable. That's really the gist of that, right? Start with the basics. It's a great goal. It's a great long-term goal. Like, we have tooling. Fun fact, Harvester, every time you reboot Harvester, it reinstalls itself. It uses an immutable operating system. But it's got basically a folder that stores all your data. So every time it turns on, you're basically getting a fresh copy of the operating system that runs everything. It's cool. Is it necessary? Nope. Crawl, walk, run it. Does that make sense? Cool. Cool, we got the Terraform in there. Any other thing we want to see real quick? Anybody in the tuber lands? Okay. So let me show you what I've deployed. I have a beautiful Kubernetes cluster.
K9s.
No.
It's built into Rancher.
Okay.
Fun fact, if you didn't know that.
Okay.
Then I gotta run Rancher.
I'm a former Mirantis employee. No, I'm thinking of not K9s. What's the Mirantis one? Lens. There we go. Never mind. K9s is a little much in a little tiny terminal. It's a little bit much.
Yeah, but it's where I already live in the terminal. So.
That's fair. But let me show you the beautiful world of Rancher as a multi-cluster manager. Okay. So I have carbided the thing, so we have their nice, and no, we did not call each other and be like, blue shirt khakis today? Yeah, we're dressed alike. It's a little disgusting.
We were at a meeting earlier with one of our other coworkers, and he was also wearing the same shirt.
Yeah.
We got new shirts like a month ago, and everyone happened to get them all.
We ordered the same shirts. Like, yay. Okay. So when you first log in, this is Rancher. This is our multi-cluster manager. You see I've got a local cluster. We're going to kind of talk about the cluster lifecycle management, and then we'll kind of drill in a little bit. But in terms of talking about local is the local cluster this is installed on. Right now it's installed on 3 VMs. You can actually deploy this into a Docker engine, single machine to run it. Although there's a scaling issue. When you start scaling a lot of downstream, you probably want it on a Kubernetes cluster with multiple nodes. A lot of little, same kind of thing we talked about earlier. Okay, let's go to cluster management. Okay, this did not work earlier because I'm using DigitalOcean and I've got some button screwed up. But if I was using AWS, if you guys really want to see this, we can use Rancher's GUI to actually go and schedule more clusters. We call them downstream. So think about that hub and spoke. You can use Rancher as your hub to build more spokes. And by that, we mean Kubernetes clusters. Case in point, you want to go spin up a dev cluster, either programmatically, infrastructure as code standpoint of view. You can literally go, you can have this all deployed with our GitOps tool and say, give me a downstream cluster on C2S, done. And now you've got a cluster. Yes. Specific CRDs. Yeah. Specific to, yeah, and the nice thing about it is, in terms of the credentials, the drivers, here, actually, we showed it there. These are all the different cloud providers. You notice the fun one in there? Come on, I'll give you that. We have 2 hats, so you guys are fighting for it. This is for a hat. What's the fun cloud provider? It was on the burrito stack.
Harvest.
There you go. So we can use our own hyperconverged as a cloud provider. So think about, you can build your own cloud if you're on bare metal. Now you've got a cloud provider, you can say, go give me 6 VMs. I want them to be a separate cluster. I want this ingress, I want this, and this. Go.
And notice there's a certain competitor I will not say, but we also build right on top of them as a cloud provider as well.
2 points. Wait, who's our competitor? No, they're not. Linode has nothing to do with this. So, I mean, really what we're talking about is cluster lifecycle too. So, actually, this is great for your blue-green. You want to build a new one? Click a button. You're happy, you want to delete the old one, you move DNS, click a button and delete the old cluster. It can be that easy.
Paste the YAML, click a button. That's all you got to do.
Yeah. I don't have it running, but one of the other cool things about it is when you build a downstream cluster, you can also manage the downstream SSH keys and access to it through this GUI, which is pretty nice. You pulling yours up?
I'll build it right now.
Do you guys want to see more? Does this make sense, or do you guys want to see more of this on the cluster lifecycle? Was that a yes? Okay, so he'll build his with AWS right now.
Terraform apply.
Yeah. Well, he's got to build his first one and then be able to show his second one. While he's doing that, let's talk about GitOps, because that's one of my favorite. So continuous delivery. Okay. Right now, I've got no GitOps repos, no Git repos configured. Again, I got to fall back to my bash.
Is the continuous delivery part open source or no?
Yes, because it's all built into Rancher, which is open source. Yep. So I just scripted it to make it easy on my life. So here's the cool part, right? So while this is actually deploying, I've created 3 CRDs called Git repos. Right now what it's doing is it's saying, okay, great, I'm going to go look at that GitHub repo. This could be GitLab inside. This could be on Box. I've got a fun video I'll post. I'll put in our gist later. But it's actually going, and these are just straight YAMLs. It could be Helm. It's go ahead and applying them. So very easily, I now have who am I deployed. Ghost should be coming up in a second, as well as Flask. Now, what's kind of fun, and I didn't mean to demo it this way, is they're waiting on storage. I have Longhorn deployed, okay? And we can go look that we've got those 2 attaching. So again, remember I talked about Longhorn, that it uses the aggregate storage. So these are my 3 VMs running. These are all the storage that I have available to it. So it's using the existing storage that's already there. I didn't have to do anything special for it. It's creating those volumes. Oh, please don't be the bug. There's an SE Linux bug. No, this should have this has the fix. This should work.
Did the bug we spoke about earlier where we found it at 4 p.m., had a fix by 8 a.m., right? Or had a fix an hour later, but had customers
Had a
talk 8
workaround.
a.m.?
Your nodes have the right tools installed.
Yes.
So there's a package that needs to be installed.
iSCSI admin. All there, buddy. Yep. Okay, still. Oh, container creating. Okay, that's good. It usually doesn't take this long. No, I think this is the bug. Damn it. SE Linux again. I'm not going to fix it. But you get the idea in terms of the GitOps, right? In terms of if you want to see what the code looks like, I can add it in. So git Clemenko. Huh?
So that I definitely do.
Okay.
We're evaluating, we basically settled on Argo for this. I use Flux at home.
So
for my cluster.
you think about if you don't need the full features of Argo or Flux, Fleet is that perfect integration that comes with the Rancher Manager, so it's not an additional tool, and it just integrates great into GitLab, GitHub, any Git provider, right? Git-T.
Git-T is a good one we use on the air-gap stuff because it's easy to deploy. So this is just a straight-up YAML in the repo. So Clemenko/Fleet. I put it in our gist. In terms of the actual repo itself, the repo object, it's just that. You just say, hey, there's the GitHub.
GitLab, Git-T.
There's the Git repo. There's the branch. There's a directory. Go. Yep, this is definitely the SE Linux bug. Hold on, now I'm curious. This is always fun.
It works on my cluster.
Oh, it works on my cluster. No, I have the fix in here. Yeah, it's so I'm literally down revving container SE Linux file. We were at lunch and I said that to our vice president. She's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Downgrade? Down rev? That's funny. Yeah, there's the fix, so I don't know. We'll figure it out later. But thanks to infrastructure as code, Zach's building his right now. Pew pew. Okay, but that's the cool thing. So that's the cool thing kind of about this Fleet is that it just In theory, it just works. And if I wanted to, let's see if this works. So this is my actual repo. I'm a different browser. If I wanted to, I could go ahead and change this, and it would automatically, within about 2 minutes, pick up the change and automatically apply it. So Tim, we talked about PagerDuty earlier. Have you ever gone on PagerDuty and brought something back up, and they go, the dev's like, oh, that's not the latest version? Has that ever happened to you? Oh, you're young. You'll get it. But that's happened to me quite a bit. And then you go to the developers. You're like, hey, what is the latest version? And they go, oh, it's 3.x, 3.1. I'm like, great, 2.9's on the server. Oh, I don't know why that server wasn't updated. And that's really drift. There's a newer version, right? So the nice thing about having GitOps is that Git, it becomes the source of truth. Because then if you go, Kubernetes does high availability and redeploys it, or you go and build a new cluster and you're deploying with quote unquote the latest good known, and they go, oh, you deployed with the wrong version. Be like, well, you didn't update the source of truth. So really it's about blaming them and not us.
Well, that's because somebody went onto the cluster, they updated it, and didn't update Git, and then
Again,
it rolled it back.
that sounds like a problem of developers, not a, you know. I deployed what we were told is current, exactly. But this really does help with that and really kind of manage that, especially when you start thinking about blue-green or you know, dev, test, prod, QA, this availability zone, this enclave, this, you know, this definitely will help with scale. That's a big one. Okay. I'm trying to be cognizant of time because in theory we only have a half an hour. You guys good on time? There's cookies out there. There's a bar that closes across the street. I mean, okay. I don't want to troubleshoot this too much. Let's troubleshoot it real quick. Kube get node. Let's see if this works real quick. I'm just going to run one yum command and then bounce it. 404. Oh, you bastard. It wasn't me. It was the upstream yum servers. Oh. They pulled the container. How could they pull the container, the package? Well, no, this is the last version. So Red Hat updated Container SC Linux. Oh, you bastard. What? Oh, don't tell me Rocky's got an issue. You should be using 9.2. Oh, to the Vault. What the? Thanks, man.
You're using 9.2.
What was the rest of the path? Appstream. x86, OS, packages. C. Copy link. That's not fun.
You guys take a guess what's also going to fail?
Everything else I'm doing.
My cluster with the exact same fix. Never seen the Vault before. That's interesting.
I haven't either. That's probably their way of offlining and saving on storage. Well, it says it's installed. .205. So how do I force it? Oh no, I did it wrong. Come on, guys, you're supposed to keep me honest. There we go. Still interchangeable. No, I agree. It's still interchangeable.
I also run Fedora at home.
Ew. Nah, that's fine. Does it work for you?
It's newer than Rocky. It's upstream of, downstream of Rocky.
Yeah, well, the one nice thing, at least, I mean, that's cool, like, no, I wouldn't say bleeding edge, but it's to test. But having to have a little bit of stability, and notice I'm deploying with 9.1, not 9.2, because DigitalOcean doesn't have a 9.2 image. They still have 9.1, so I'm like, okay, 9.1's fine. It's
I was actually thinking about running CoreOS to
really,
swap into CoreOS.
it's dead. It's dead.
Fedora CoreOS.
Oh, Fedora CoreOS,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not dead.
The server equivalent of Silverwood.
Okay. Why aren't you running Haiku?
I don't know anything about that.
Does anybody know what Haiku OS is? You ever heard of Bbox and BOS? Haiku is the new version of
I've never
BOS.
used them. I don't know.
Oh,
Heard of
it's
them, I don't know
it's
anything
it's super geeky, and I think they got Firefox. They got a bunch of stuff ported over to it, and you're like, eh?
Well, I'm
Cool.
just running Kubernetes nodes anyway, so. And I have a mixed cloud at home, so,
Nice.
which creates its own frustrations. That maybe, because I have some images that, although the Docker manifest says it's x86, it still tries to schedule them on my ARM cluster, on my ARM nodes, which is hilarious, because it should know. And I have to go
So-
and throw a node selector on it.
Oh, nice. Oh, because you've got mixed in the Kubernetes.
Yeah.
Yeah, node selector. By the way, fun thing. I just blew away my cluster, and I'm building it new with the new fix, with the Vault package, which means Longhorn should work, which means Fleet should work. We might run into a DNS caching issue with Chrome. So to supersede that, Chrome, let me go ahead and... The Vault makes me mad, I'm just saying. Why did they move it? Okay, so let's go back to our...
Well, why is it not a 301 to?
Yeah, it's symbolic link. Come on, guys. Okay. We talked about cluster lifecycle. We talked about Longhorn. I want to drill into more Rancher. New vector. Let's talk about Fargate. Don't use Fargate and Lambda. Well, okay. Did you guys read the article from Prime Video? Use the right tool for the right job, I think was the moral of the story.
Yeah, but there are workloads that work well on Fargate. I mean, they may not be necessarily Kubernetes workloads, but there are workloads.
Valid, very valid. I think one of the big things you got to keep in mind is the minimum number of, I forget what Fargate calls it, but like the live, like you can specify, I want 4 containers ready to go for requests. I want a minimum of 4, so it'll basically set up an auto scaling. You're basically setting a low watermark. You can set a high watermark. I could see that as an ingest function. Yeah.
That's exactly what we do ETL.
Okay. Well, NiFi. Yay, NiFi.
Well, it may not be eventually, but who knows?
As with every tool that has been around for 10 years, it's destined for the grave. Accumulo, all of the MDRs. Okay. Any questions while we're watching this, and we can talk a little bit about auto scaling. Questions? I think when we talk about auto scaling, I think one of the big things is what layer do you want to auto scale in, and then how do you instrument it, right? Because we talked about the EC2 auto scaling groups. We talked about, so in other words, go down as fast as you can and auto scale there. But that, infrastructure is code. So whether you're using your own AMI, you got to have that with the tooling and the cloud init, a little bit of code that says, oh, by the way, you're new to the cluster. Your cluster's over here. Your management plane's right here. Go ahead and listen to them. They'll tell you everything you need to know. They're like new employee, right? New employee syndrome. Exactly. As long as you've got that logic down and it's automated and tested, auto scale all day long. I think auto scaling isn't quite like a run, but it's a pretty fast walk. Are you guys running into any auto scaling issues where you need that burst, or?
We're still working on our IOC. So,
Okay. Are you guys experiencing chargeback? Well, if you're an if you're in AWS, yes, right? Not yet?
Let's go with not yet, because I don't.
It's coming. It's always
I
coming.
don't deal with that, so let's not.
Okay. Are you guys building single tenant or multi-tenant?
At the moment, we're single.
Okay.
'Cause we're going to be, we're working for the entire org. So.
So your org is considered single tenant?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. Because one of the things that we just got briefed on, which we thought was pretty interesting.
Well, I mean, if you want to throw things like dev test prod into multi-tenant.
It can actually. That's what's interesting.
That's what, I mean, that's one of the things we're talking with AWS now is trying to figure out how to split all of this stuff up.
Kube cost. Well, okay. This is personal. But when there's a secondary and tertiary industry on how to optimize a cloud provider, they're doing it wrong, right? I don't know. That's just personal. Do you agree? What's the story? I want to hear it. You're laughing pretty hard back there. You agree with me? No, you don't agree? Are you from AWS? Okay. That'd be awesome. They're our friends, by the way. We love them. We got a workshop actually coming up on the 15th with them. So if you guys want to actually go deep dive with AWS, we can definitely get you guys a link and you can come on over. We'll spin up environments for you to play with, which is fun. Okay. Kube cost is really cool in terms of being able to manage or at least provide that show back, for lack of a better term. So show back is where you show what it costs per namespace per, right? We had a really good chat with them the other day. And
Yesterday.
oh, my days are blurring. Really cool. Something worth looking at if you're starting to think multi-tenant.
Did you mention it was in the app catalog?
No, I thought it wasn't there yet.
Kube cost?
Yeah.
It is.
Well, let's wait a minute for my cluster to come back up. Well, yeah. So that Zach brings up a good point. If it's already in the app catalog, you already have the Helm. Then you just need the actual images to pull into your network, or at least test some of the stuff on class. As we're kind of talking about air gapping, do you guys have a cross-domain solution yet? Or is your IOC on class before you start thinking about?
It's all going to be C2S.
Okay. Are you developing low or high?
Both.
Okay.
Primary development is low side.
Okay, that's good. Because one of the things, we talked about Carbide having as your known good starting point. One of the things we're trying to do is also either develop a secondary container yard or leverage container yard to also serve those bits out. So as a downstream customer, potentially you guys would be very easily take advantage of it. And also helping our customers understand the process so they can reproduce it for their software. So whether it's NiFi, whether it's whatever the latest and greatest is, the idea is make it reproducible for all of the bits. Okay, Rancher's on its way back up. We'll look there in a second. Go ahead.
Yeah, going back to authorizations way back.
Keycloak.
Is there a path for
It's
connecting to the
Keycloak.
PKI provider?
Keycloak.
Interclypse?
Yes. Well, okay. Yes and no. So really, where do we have the slide? I'll show you the slide in a sec when it comes up. Hold on. Oh, okay. By the way, for ingress, this is kind of fun fact. I'm running traffic as my. I agree with you most of the time. Nginx is default. It's there.
We'll ship with it.
Actually, it's not. Traffic is default.
No. Traffic is default on K3S. Nginx is default on RKE2. Why? No one can tell me.
Yeah, the first thing I did was rip out traffic on K3S.
But here's the fun fact. If you run traffic on K3S, actually, I don't use traffic on K3S. I deploy my own traffic on K3S because I want the CRDs that don't come by default, A. B, on K3S, it uses Clipper LB. So it's like Metal LB. So it just flipping works, and it's great. For my instances, I actually run it as a daemon set, so I have an ingress on every node, and then I can do a physical load balancer to go to any one of the VMs. So if a VM dies, who cares? Now here's a fun fact on my script. This is fun. My DNS only points to the first node. But I do have a wildcard cert, so yay me. And it's a fully signed licensed cert. There you go.
Let's encrypt.
No, because it's air gaps.
Well, yeah.
Okay. So here's my nodes, here's my volumes, here's my steeple, here's all the people. Okay, it's still bootstrapping. See? Waiting for, okay, hold on. So, fun fact, max cache DNS. So I wrote a thing that was supposed to flush it. If that doesn't work,
Incognito.
say it again.
Incognito.
Yeah, that works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my DNS to empty. And then let's give it a...
Any other questions?
Well, I got to finish the one about authorization. Actually, this should work. Bootstrap. I know I've got that wrong. I have it here. I thought I had it here. Where I thought I had bootstrap
At the top. Let's go to the top. Oh, wait.
No results.
You
Did I put it?
You have it as a variable.
No, I have it in here. There you go. Bootstrap all the things. Different function. Haha. And then, of course, watch it be done. Nope. DNS, man. Okay. It'll probably break my Bootstrap script. But, okay, let's go to authorization to answer your question. So we can absolutely use, in terms of an auth provider, all these different, so LDAP, SAML2, OIDC. When you talk about PKI integration, yes, we can do PKI integration. But in terms of subscribing to a PKI authoritative, I know what you're talking about. No. But we can go and say, in terms of PKI, we'll accept certs signed by this CA and then give it the user CAs. But then there's the whole revocation list. And let's face it, they don't run one. They say they do, but they haven't for years. So that gets weird. I think really understanding the scope and who's going to connect to it, I would probably go local. I would probably run on my own OIDC and then just authenticate them based on, and you might be able to do this. I know I was able to do it years ago with what's called an inferred password. So in other words, they register for an account in your Keycloak with their PKI. So it's directly, right? It's an inferred credential based on the PKI. So that way you have a username and password and you can tell exactly who that person is. So we did that, Container did that years ago. They finally went back to PKI, but because I think they did a better job at the non-person entity cert handout. Because back in the day they wouldn't. And so you're like, I've got systems that I need to pull images and I can't authenticate. What do you, and then you've got people's personal tie to these systems. You're like, no, that's bad. That's very bad. There was a guy that may or may not be in a forum.
Now you're doing it with tokens,
Pull through tokens?
No, you're using like a Docker login with a token.
Which is a derived credential, right? That's where I was going with that. Okay. Why are you not working? So I'm literally setting the DNS servers for mine. So it'll go dig rancher. I told you there'd be a DNS issue. Yeah, it's still not. I think I'm also in the TTL. So it's funny, I change it to a different, to Cloudflare. And it's still, oh, Cloudflare doesn't like it. Ooh. But I literally have a wildcard. Wildcard DNS, wildcard cert.
Fantastic.
When it works. The fact that it's not resolving an interesting. Hold on. Inside baseball. Yay, YouTubers. Actually, I can go here. Yes, I'm a DNS-aholic. Yeah, so it's DNS is there. Watch them have a problem right now. Okay. Hopefully that helps. Actually, this. So the stuff that's waiting to bootstrap is all the carbide stuff. I wonder if there's a way I can kick it. I still can't believe DNS. What if I'm getting? What's your DNS here? Is it like Verizon?
I think so. I think that's, who's the provider, right? Or is that a Julio question? I think it's a Julio question? No, I think it's Brad.
Because I wonder if because your router may be caching if you're using like the Verizon DMARC. Well, it's the Verizon box does it because it's watching all the traffic and data.
What address are you expecting?
Any. I'm not getting a response from any of the DNS, which is no bueno.
I get a 167 address for RFED.io.
Okay, so then it may be my machine.
I am,
Oh,
which is probably where.
I'm on a different network. Look at me. I'm a smart guy. Let me switch networks. I know. Let's see it pop up. I like the
Other
passwords.
networks.
There we go.
Pineapple.
How do you spell pineapple? All of a sudden, be like, I accept. That's a great EULA. Do you agree? There you go. Now it starts bootstrapping. Isn't technology great? Okay, so Carbide's coming up. And when that's done, I'm going to flip back into Fleet. While that's coming up, this is both the worst and best video ever. That one. We still got to talk about new vector. I'll install that too. Git. And we talked about Git is the same thing. You guys use GitLab internally? Okay, so you don't need to worry about that. We talked about Fleet. That'll come up, and I'll show you that in a sec.
Time check is 15 minutes.
15. Okay. Can I do this in sequence? Yes, I can do this in sequence. So we'll go here to continuous delivery. So I just redeployed my Git repos. This is a point of pride. Okay, this has to work now. Actually, watch it fail because I fat fingered something. 3, 2, 1. We'll let that work. New vector. Let's deploy new vector. Although I think new vector hits the same bug because it uses stateful storage. Actually, hold on. Let me modify it to not use it, and that way we know it'll come up. It's so big I can't read it. Okay, deploying new vector now without storage. So even if it's a bug, yeah, it's still, I got to figure that one out. So much for the workaround. Okay, so this is deploying new vector, and this will take a minute to come up. We can actually, let's talk about application lifecycle management, because we didn't really talk about that. So unfortunately, one developer in the back left. I guess we weren't cool enough. But one of the cool things about managing applications with Rancher as a GUI is you literally have 5 different ways to manage the applications. Right? What's the first one we already used? Fleet? Man, you guys don't want swag or go get cookies real quick and Red Bull. Is there Red Bull back there? So Fleet was the first way, right? So GitOps is a way to manage the application. The second way to manage it is import YAML. So I can go and say, here's my YAML, I want to deploy it, go. Is that ideal? David, let's pick on David. You've been too quiet. Is that ideal?
Probably not.
Correct. Should I then pull a shell up and type in my commands? Is that ideal?
I think that might be worse.
That is actually worse, correct.
Before you leave, can you type K9S?
Oh, I knew you were going to do that. So we pull an image. So this is running in a pod. We pull an image from upstream that has K9S built into it. So it's funny that you go to a GUI to manage the cluster to pull up a pod to manage the cluster from a command line.
This shell access here is kind of the easy way to tell your developers, hey, you don't need SSH access. Here's a command line into it, right?
Is there a way to control who can pop that?
Yes.
shell?
Yes.
Okay.
So like the question about PKI, you can definitely create a role that has access to it. You can scope it down per namespace through Kubernetes RBAC. Yep, traditional RBAC. Okay, so that was method number 2. That was actually method number 3. Method number 4, I can download a kubeconfig and run K9S on my workstation. Weirdo.
So think about your question earlier about developers developing on their own workstation. If you have enough resources on your dev cluster, say in AWS, you could have developers download a kubeconfig, and to them, it feels like they're developing on their workstation, but in reality, it's deploying out onto a separate namespace, separate authorization, separate RBAC, right? And everything to them looks like they're developing on their workstation, but in reality, it's all going through Rancher.
Well, and resource constraints, the driver for me to K9S because I was deploying on PIs first.
So you needed the lightweight interface. Yep. There's another one out there called Octant that did used your kubeconfig locally and did a representation. There's another one that I just hit recently that does the same thing, but they just.
And OpenLens is crap. It doesn't.
That's Morantis. It's Russian. You can't use it.
Doesn't give you nearly as much. Well, I don't
No,
know.
it's Russian. Yet.
So, K9S is, in my opinion, if you're not going to use Rancher, you're going to stay in a terminal. K9S is
kubectl. I'm just saying it's an option. The TUI. Okay. Download the kubeconfig again. Here's the last option, and this is the fun one. We have charts. So Zack mentioned
Scroll up.
kubecost, and there we go. So let's go ahead and deploy kubecost. I don't know if this will work. What could hurt? Oh, by the way, you see its default namespace? No. Always create a namespace. Cool. And cluster name. Enable persistent volume. Good idea. Although watch it be working now. Nope, still not working. Good eye. Although probably these will do the same thing. Yeah, persistent storage. Dang it. Actually, what I can do, this is kind of fun, is I can go in here and I can download the YAML, but I can also edit it. So it's literally front-ending Helm. So I can go in and change it. Create persistent. We're good there. Alert manager, push gateway, services, enable ingress. Everybody needs ingress. Ooh, I like that one. Actually, I don't even need to do that. Kube cost. Yay, wildcard. Update. So this will update, let that run. So in the background, I deployed, why didn't the new vector thing run? Wrong domain. So we deployed new vector. Oh, of course. Here you go, command line. So everything's running, so I'm missing an ingress object. So there's new vector. But I like doing TLS with in traffic, so TCP. So it's there. Yeah, service is up. Yeah, but that's just a pointer. Service is just a pointer. No, traffic's not seeing it. Why is traffic not seeing it? Let's see. What? Now it sees it. Oh, maybe it was just taking its sweet old time. And then I'm cached. Thank you, Chrome. I like how they actually put the clear thing right in the main because they know people use it. Hey, Hopa. So it's a self-signed cert. Okay, let's look at NewVector for a second. This is our hyper advanced security tool. One of the, it is advanced, come on. No, it was admin, capital PA22WRD. Come on, because that is the only default password we can ever use, right? Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Okay, let's take a little quick tour. A couple cool things, right? Network observability. That is one of the things that NewVector is really good at. It does not use a kernel module. It does not use eBPF. It's built in locally. Yeah. So what it means is it's using IP tables, Linux, normal Linux taps, network taps, to provide, because remember, it can drop packets where the other tools in this market can't. So that's a good way it does it. But it also gives it a little more insight as to what's talking to what, because again, it's in the path of the network.
So this is pods, this is nodes, this is
Yep.
anything network related.
So I can go and look at the details of one of these. I can look at incoming, I can look at outgoing, I can inspect the traffic, at least the meta, right? The who's talking to whom kind of conversations. Okay, so that's a pretty cool feature. One of the other features that I really love is going into the assets, into containers. We talk about observability. Oh, I didn't turn auto scan on. Let me now auto scan all of my images. So we talked about earlier with Carby, the secure supply chain. A lot of the things like Container Yard, you can validate that the image has no vulnerabilities or very few when you pull it. But what about 10 minutes later, 10 hours later, 10 days later, 10 weeks later? Right? Having continuous observability where you don't have to go back to that central registry means that I can go at any point in time when the next Heartbleed knows log for this, log for that comes out. The first question you're going to be asked from an infrastructure side is what's our exposure? How bad is it? This is a great tool for that because you can go in and go, oh, okay, see this who am I right here? Let me go ahead and click on that. I can go look at the container details. I can look at the vulnerability list. We don't have any. Cool. I can look at the process list. It's one process. But here, let's pick on one. Let's pick on my Flask app. Okay. Whoa, do you see right there? See a little red? It's running as root. Could that be a security problem? Let's look at vulnerabilities. Uh-oh. I've got some vulnerabilities. OpenSSL. It's always OpenSSL. Or libxml, that's another good one. Right? So now I've got vulnerabilities. Well, the cool part is I can actually export this right here as a CSV. There's a little button right here that says export as CSV. So now imagine always having continuously an observability tool monitoring all the stuff that's going on. Okay, that's kind of a fun one. And Zack talked about this, but we can actually go hit a registry and scan a registry with this tool. So think about where you apply this tool. You can apply it downrange. You can apply it back at your hub to scan your registry. So it's really kind of getting control of all of your images. This is where it gets really fun in terms of the policies. So let's look at a WAF sensor. You know what WAF stands for? Web Access Framework, right? Web Application Framework. Yeah, something like that. It's like JBOD, has multiple meanings. But here we literally have the log4j HTTP policy in place. So any app I deployed to this cluster running NewVector in its current state would be vulnerable. What we can do is we can go to the settings, go under configuration. I can go and set those modes. Remember I called the one mode kill mode? That's protect. We're in discover mode right now. In other words, it's just watching. I'm just watching. I'm just seeing what's going on. It's building its behavioral analysis. Then if we go, okay, I like what I'm seeing. Let's put it in a monitor mode. Now it has that database, but it's going to start alerting. It's going to let it happen. Whether it's a process, whether it's a packet, it's going to let it happen, but it's going to alert you. It's going to say, hey, something's different going on over here. You might want to check it out. And then, of course, we have kill mode, I like to call that, right? Which is like, I ain't letting crap happen. And it'll alert at the same time. So obviously understanding the environments you're deploying to, this is a good one to kind of understand how, where you slide that dial.
Another cool thing here, scroll down a little bit, is I can set how long I wanted to switch modes. So if I deploy a new cluster out and say it's deployed on an edge kit going down range, I can deploy it out and I know it takes me 2 hours to do everything. You could either set the 2 hours to switch from discover to protect mode. So when it does go down range, it's right there already in protect mode.
Cool. Let's take a look. Go back to our code.
Any last questions? We're a few minutes over. 2 minutes over.
And we're gonna send this to who? Okay, we'll send this little list out with a link to the gist. We'll put this in a gist so you guys can go and look at some of these links.
We'll add some docs link in here as well to link to all the docs if you guys want to take a look.
Let them figure that out. Oh, Harvester. You guys want to see Harvester? Okay. I am getting off this wonderful network and I'm getting on, there's actual Wi-Fi in that box over there. So that's what I just connected to. Let's go back to Chrome and frame.2, frame2.rfed.me. Or is it 1? I forget which one I put it on. Yeah, there we go, 1. So here's kind of fun. It uses, by the way, it's capital PA22WRD because that's the only password. It actually uses Rancher under the hood. So it's an operating system. We talked about the ephemeral nature, right, that it uses Slee Micro, but it uses Rancher under the hood. It actually uses Longhorn under the hood for stateful storage across all the nodes. So you can set up high availability with the existing storage, just like you would. That normally works minus the SE Linux bug that Zack and I both have hit several times today. Yay. But not only can you run virtual machines, so I'm running 2 virtual machines right now, frame 3, frame 4. I can even add another one if I wanted to. I can inject cloud init templates. You guys familiar with that? So
Startup scripts.
that's an easy way to think of it. So let's do inter for Interclypse. I'm going to pull up my template. I'm going to dial back because I don't have that many cores. I'm going to do 2x4. 2x4. I'm using Rocky 9.1. It's going to go on the default network. I don't have to think anything about it. So I'm actually spinning it up on one of those laptop boards right now, another VM. Okay. Think about how, if you've got a 4U, a 2U, like I've got a 1U server in my house, he's got a 2U. Think about a small data center, about being able to spin up VMs. You can absolutely spin up a Windows VM. You can spin up anything you want. I can even then go and get a web VNC terminal. So we can actually watch it boot. And there we go. There. See, now it's starting to boot. I can get a console, virtual console that way. So in terms of your workstation question, Tim, earlier, connect in with SSH or VNC to the operating system directly or like RDP. So I wouldn't go through this. This is more like, oh crap, something happened. But it is completely available. And there's my login and of course root. And what do you think the password is? Capital PA22WRD, because why not? That's how I roll, right? But the other cool thing is that you can inject SSH keys. So there's my key, and then I can do SSH. Actually, I don't even have to give it a name because my cloud init has my username and SSH key built into it. Okay. One of the other cool things about this, and here, let's go ahead and export config. I happen to have the Plex, what do I call it? Frame. There we go. You and your K9S. If you can spot, can anybody spot the, wait, hold on. No, wait, that's not the, oh, that is the cluster. I do have that running there too. I'm like, wait, why am I getting all these images and errors? Can you, oh, that's not the right one. Hold on. I'm talking to the cluster. I don't want to talk to the cluster. I want to talk to, I don't have it in there. Okay, let's do this round. No, I don't have the kubectl config on my machine to talk to it. But the cool part about it is underneath the hood, it's all containers and pods running those VMs. Right? Here's really where the Holy Grail comes in. Not only can I run VMs on the host operating system, I can run containers. So you would run a version control, you would run other things on the host OS, not in a VM. So think about taking better advantage of the shared resources, okay? Where it also gets interesting, remember we showed this earlier, I don't know if this will come up, but, oh, that box is not connected to the internet, it's blinking. But remember when we had that cluster management, I could use it as a cloud provider. So you can tightly integrate Harvester and Rancher together and be able to use it as a cloud provider managing multiple. So this can be, I'll be honest, this is on video, so this is my word. It's not as performant as VMware yet, but it's getting there. But it also adds some really interesting capabilities. And I think it's fit for prime time for smaller teams that have a little more luxury of infrastructure as code and things like that.
It's the answer to the full story. That's what
Yep.
it is, going from the bottom of the stack to the top. And
Would you call that a burrito?
What about a sandwich?
I like the sandwich.
Okay, sandwich. I'll do sandwich.
But there's a lot of stuff on it. And that's why we kind of have it down here at the bottom of the stack.
And you plug and play. That's our whole thing.
Yeah.
We're here to assist you. We're not going to shove a truckload of software.
Oh, I hate that.
Yeah, any last minute questions? I know we're a few minutes over here.
Is there a lot of information? Do you guys want to come join us at for AWS in a couple weeks?
Awesome.
Okay. There's another opportunity. We like doing more intimate workshops, so that would be a follow-on potentially. If we didn't have the AWS one, you know, we could just come in here and spin up a bunch of VMs for you guys, and we can just start playing, and you can learn to deploy. I think the AWS is going to be a really good opportunity, and we'll make sure we'll send it to Brian. Oh, you're Brian. Hi, Brian. I'm Andy. He's hiding back there. Well, Brian, I'll send you the gist and the links. So the gist will go in the video, and then we'll send you the link to the AWS stuff. I think that'll be a really good opportunity. Plus, AWS will be there. I mean, hey, they're eating the world right now. So, anything you want to see, Brian? No problem.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
When the video's off, I'll understand what you were laughing at about AWS. Bye, stream.